COVID-19 plunged the world into a state of uncertainty, with many governments perplexed as to how to sustain the livelihoods of their citizens and contain a virus that has affected more than 20 million lives globally. The Ghana situation is no different, with more than 41,000 people affected. Without a vaccine, medical professionals in various jurisdictions have been using various interventions to control the spread of the coronavirus, but it had become dangerous to continue to interact, as one would expose themselves to the virus. When medical professionals were being given incentives, the Inky fraternity was left out. But that did not deter me from following stories on how people were surviving, especially when Accra and Kumasi were on partial lockdown. So one afternoon, I set off with my camera, trying to gauge the reactions of people on the streets. We all know that there are some people who definitely wouldn't follow the lockdown rules rigidly, as one would expect. Then I came across a middle-aged cobbler, Safo. Then looking at the way this man was sitting, I could sense frustration on his part. So I got close to find out what could possibly be wrong with Safo, and why he should be working when he knew that people weren't allowed to work per lockdown rules. I was surprised when he told me that he needed just 5 cedis to buy rice to cook for his poor family.
Buying some young quadrum, now we saw mobile once I was a bedroom, and then how
Miniska, a Diana Amekotoye, a Garanimo Kakra, now working in Nasa.
Shemanim 1 million unibi, Minibi offer.
Safo's story triggered some support, so I followed up to present what I had to him.
Kwame Niama, almost Virginia, America, almost the amount of 10 million.
If I see the cry, Dami Butoma, no comedy to be beadino. Rubo PM Swa, Yamina Muswa, inti, a mamma winina, the Bia would do Sabusum, and Yen Shira, a mamma.
I never knew that the story would touch many more hearts, so I got further support and then went there a second time. Safo was spellbound, as you would expect, because this is a man who has lived in poverty, extreme poverty, all his life.
You are here for him, says the Muhu, medical call Akochia opening Safo. Na onim de nti aye ba o de woni so ade hu no chese won sheda en so da ye kese chese 5 cedi 2 cedi 10 cedi and
won se me bom paye se nyame mboa me a mani da so se nyame boboa me na so se sika kese ne de ofa na kura na me ka kire on
to bo ye pese be kasa bebre se ne nipa na do so se de kan kan no ye twam na ye se ye mfa ha ene so ye mfa mu ama nti minim se mu isa na wo ye nde ene afa mu ama eze mu isa just asema ba o
nyame be kire ni tumi
ene sister bi nenam mami oya adwuma agricultural development bank ADB ka wasem kire no so opese ode na ni be den ebe show bye na ye ma ye kasa nye tenten openi Safo se medi kan ka kire se ye ko ba bi ena ye twema hwese de ho te oh skye kitami eye 170 million openi Safo se sika we nyina eye odia
as ajiwi pa anka haya anka sesen kamedi mu tu fam na me di hye nyankopon wan wonyam.
He followed up to show appreciation for the support he received.
Abofo kase a wutimi anim hai woni abofo biara nyankopon ka wo makoma se omomoa me sa bere na me ho akiri mi no mesira ma woni se nyame ma wo nyare da omoa ho dina efiri soro ene kwatenten de wo ye fi nyankopon wo biara oma wo mre onfa mo fanmu.
Moving around, I realized many more people needed support. Bujumbura is known for its endemic poverty, so I decided to go there and see how people are responding to COVID restrictions. I chanced on 73-year-old Mary. Mama Mary tells me that life has been extremely difficult for her during the lockdown. After sharing her story, I got support for her. 560 Ghana cedis first came. So.
I am come out, Kuma. Mamma Mania and we shadow. Auntie Mary
is not the only one. 33-year-old Elizabeth had been living in extreme poverty for so many years, especially after being abandoned by a man who did not take responsibility for her pregnancy. She tells me a very sad story about herself and how her life has become even more miserable during the lockdown.
About 13 years. About
13 years. No ba no be ma. Why na hwe no?
Me John no kwa
John no kwa. No be den akwada 13 years.
Ebi wa kwa me kwa. Na se me wo 20 Ghana bia. Na mama ne 10. Na me ma fa 10. Na ma pagari. E dey si wa ma.
After sharing her story, it touched the hearts of some people who came in and supported her.
500 Ghana cedis na ye dey my sister waka to 350 when we ntwa awka your sister Evelyn Apau or America abrochima o see amount 500 cedis.
Sister Evelyn na me sharp on to woman ama kwantente.
Ghana's national aging policy is aimed at achieving the socio-economic and cultural reintegration of older persons into mainstream society. But government has been unable to fully achieve the ideals of the policy, thereby predisposing the aged to socio-economic challenges. The economic impact of COVID-19 hit the aged even harder. We had to go in and support them.
Mo ma enipa ni pi ho kran so a ekomumpo e de wo mo nti wakai mo wayi ni sika ni mfifire ni tight ese yemfa ento emo eni anwa na yemfa emre mo.
It was getting expensive going around to support the many others, especially women and children who needed urgent help during this period. Fueling my car was going to be a major headache, so I directed most of them to my office. Many people who had heard my stories advocating for support for families affected by COVID restrictions supported this worthy cause. These stories touched many people, so I got calls from many individuals across the country. And then surprisingly, there were certain particular calls coming from deprived communities in the northern region that were in some sort of trouble because everybody appears to have narrowed in on the capital. But it seems most of the charity, works were being done in Accra, and then we appear to have forgotten our brothers in the deprived communities. People were even afraid. They didn't even want to venture for the fear of picking up a COVID. But I defied the odds. So I decided to extend a hand of support to our brothers in the northern part of the country who desperately needed help during this period. So I responded to calls from residents of Nyanshagu and Zogbeli in the Tamale North constituency. They were extremely happy.
Mr. Ibrahim Elpo Ejinawa Kasa Inti Diabekani say now wuni cheka zungalala Yedinyame and Edawas.
I will be smiling because, but you cannot see the smiles through this, but I'm sure you can see it through my eyes. That we're very delighted to have you here for heeding our call and to come and make this handsome donation today.
What was surprising is that these people either did not know the dangers of COVID-19 or had deliberately refused to follow the rules. I had to educate them.
Coronavirus. The virus is moving Yaria papa. Into a better natural. Yadiname ever from say. Social distancing, about social distancing. Say, but now, and say, I'm coming debris. If you are doing the Akatami Hilani, you will say that because 5 CD, 2 CD, look, I'm not tired of doing them. They shall see you.
My stories had gone viral. After these donations, I had a call from Tamale that really touched me. I quickly had to go back to Tamale and respond to the distress call of Emmanuel Dokulu, a person living with disability.
Bedru sis here me hunam no it me say we throw application more for me juma be say 2 months 3 months now I can tell me say me juma
Also open bibi kakra 2,000 Ghana cedis.
Deeply ravaged by the economic impact of COVID-19, the people of Tamale continued to bombard me with calls. I couldn't turn my back on them. This time around, residents of Vovo Gumani, a poor community, called me. They desperately needed my help. These people have been competing with animals for drinking water for decades. Water is essential in observing the hand-washing protocols to prevent people from contracting the coronavirus. However, in this town, they cannot boast of a clean source of water, let alone talk about maintaining hygiene when they share their source of drinking water with animals. After airing their story, I've been able to raise 12,000 Ghana cedis out of the 15,000 needed to get them potable water. Persons living with HIV and AIDS usually have underlying health conditions. As such, they could easily be predisposed to the ravages of the coronavirus.
Me am Gina high. Me HIV positive. Me mama ne me papa nyina wu ya. Enti me pa cha mo amuhwe na mo beboa ye.
Me am ni ka say I am HIV positive for 20 years because at TB you don't need to stigmatize the person. The person is just like you. And Uba, you wouldn't know. Say we na ye media plan my biological akola no man chirewa anya dia obe.
So I set off to support them with donations from individuals who had been touched by my stories and had decided to generously donate to mitigate the impact COVID-19 was having on vulnerable communities and other individuals who desperately needed support in these unusual times.
On behalf of Magali La Foundation, we say a very big thank you for the wonderful support you've given unto us. We pray that may God let your heart desires come to pass.
Hence the need for such persons to have nutritious meals to boost their immune system. But it appears the media's focus has not been on such persons since the pandemic broke. And I was glad to know that after my report on them had gone viral, many individuals and organizations also went in to support them.
Thank you very much.
Ningo Pram has a huge HIV and AIDS population. When its leaders got to know how my stories had elicited support for Magali La Foundation, they contacted me for support. I quickly went in to support them. The police appears to have recognized what I have been doing.
I name on bibi kakra. And went. Yeah, that's it.
You will be say that Ningo Pram has say. So much more joy the piano, not a free. You the buyer say, Kolobu, Kasemu, Tama General Hospital, Rage Hospital. Like a Ningo Pram, Kitsu, the Yasha head, you didn't say, Bilim per Eden, or drain your hossa. The much we did never say, Eddie Abaya. Your can is a Yakupo in Shlomo.
Reporting on COVID-19 also entails educating the public on the dangers of the disease.
No major kwanya we so na saa yarboni a coronavirus ya piti wiase nyina no imatumofo ewo ho kakra ebinim wo ha madwen o mo se oh yare no ewo ho nso nhede bi ho ye besre mo se mo hwe mo ho yie bebi wo ha nipa gu bebre ho hia se wo bekọ a ma enko
tena ofie na obepie nso a mo hwɛ sɛ time bia no ebi hyema no sɛ de bi hyema no enye se bia mo ba abehia health center nti ena ma hye mo kɔ ba bi enipa wo a na afei mayi ye besre mo sɛ ma mo mfa eni agro ye den kra sanitizer si se ne bo na ba fom ye besre mo de mo di kra na ja mo beja kakra sɛ de yetimi ton nam akɛse de eye nkwan no o ye nkwan na no akai wapomuden se wi ase no ma sesa. As an advocate of prison reforms in the country, I began to wonder how incarcerated individuals were going to bear the brunt of COVID-19.
Honestly, you know, the fear of COVID-19, support that requires the provision of essential PPEs and the isolation block. These are the things that we need now.
The challenges we're going through, I think we have been hammering it all time and time again, is the overcrowding. And you know, the overcrowding is very massive, especially when you come to in our places like this. And one major issue dealing with this COVID-19 is the issue of social distancing, you know, and that cannot be enforced in here. You see, the overcrowding is so massive, you know, that when the sickness gets in here, the casualty level is going to be extremely high.
My fully prepared, as a coronavirus be rahwa. Ubitime jina painting.
Ebe den se meka se yaye fully prepared che se mintumi nka na saa kakra wo se yenso yeye no yegusu ayeye.
We are all aware of the massive congestion in Ghana's prisons and the possibility of a rapid spread should there be one infection in our country's prison. So I took a giant step and decided to do a lot of advocacy of the effects of COVID-19 in our prison. You know, prison officers, no. One prisoners in the teha. Nyame fasa ma se are become once on the carbon tin on the tena crowd. Nature say eno ane say spread because your best remo bi a wo hwe bi a no. Me gina konya we so say hand sanitizers, say face mask, any de keka ho. Once o person would be Ghana prisons, no. Pupu ti ene yankasa yebetumeka na yense de aba beboa wo mo ye nyina nim se enough from sika aban edema wo obiara nim 1 cedi 80 pesos den which is 60 pesos and pa 60 pesos we are 60 pesos and you 60 pesos. I immediately got support and donated to the Ghana Prison Service.
COVID-19 has taken siege of the whole world. We are so grateful, and on behalf of the Director General of Prisons, I want to say a very big thank you for this wonderful show of concern. Security is everybody's business, and we know the work that you've been doing so far. And we are so grateful, and we pray that the good Lord will richly bless you and give you more to be able to help the Ghana Prison Service.
COVID-19 has changed our lives forever, and the effects of the economic hardships many find themselves in may linger on, even after the pandemic. As journalists, we can only continue to tell the stories that reflect the harsh reality of the pandemic, to seek support that will help people survive it.